Hey, today I am here with Dr. Junaid Niazi. Hopefully I said your last name wrong. I just asked you. I'm the worst with last names sometimes.
Right.
And I'm so happy he's here because he is a busy medical doctor, has two children, and has a super busy schedule. So thank you for being here with me. For anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell them a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Junaid Niazi. I'm a primary care doc in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. And I also trained as a life coach. So I run a coaching business helping other doctors and other healthcare providers get their charting done at work so that they can free up their time at home for themselves.
Yeah, and what a testament I was thinking to what you do, because you do get your charting done at work, which is a really as we work together, I never even thought about charting in doctors and like how much work it is. So my eyes have been opened and I have a whole new like level of empathy and respect for what doctors do, but that you can actually run a business on the side of being a full-time medical doctor. So it's just
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. I guess I'm the pudding if there's proof to be had.
Yeah. And then that's how it is with so many of our businesses, right? We're kind of the meta of what we do.
Right.
And so because you're busy, because you're a doctor, you're running the side business, you decided to join me in the last round of the pre-launch plan program.
Yeah.
What made you decide like, hey, I think I'm going to do this and spend even more time like working on my business?
Yeah, well, you were showing up in people's summits and on podcasts, and you kept talking about this pre-launch plan, which before that I'd only ever heard of as like, oh, your pre-launch runway. So you were the only person really talking about it or applying like a strategic method to that pre-launch period, which if you think about sales and you think about folks needing maybe a certain number of interactions with you before they will purchase from you, it just made a lot of sense to have an organized strategy that is offering those touch points, but also helping tackle sort of objections, raising awareness of the problem and how you may offer solutions. So that's sort of where I was coming from, saying if I can sort of pre-charge, if you will, before a launch, the content I'm putting out and be really organized about it, that'll serve me for my just most recent launch we just concluded about a month ago, as well as any future launch. I now have all that material to keep using.
Right. And something too for everyone to realize too, I'm going off of memory here, so please forgive me if I'm wrong, but people, what you do too, people can enroll at any point in time, right? In between your
Correct.
launches. So yours is an evergreen, because I know that's one of the questions I get asked a lot. Like, can I also use this if I have an evergreen type of funnel?
Yep. Yeah. So I run Evergreen all year round, and then I do two big launches, January and September. And interestingly, because I was running a little behind on getting stuff set up for this most recent launch. I was telling Brenna before that I had 5 folks join in the pre-launch period, but because I hadn't set everything up, they ended up in the Evergreen version. So I had to then transfer them all into the big live cohort launch. But just a testament to the pre-launch work.
Yeah, it works so well. You were getting people in before you were even ready for them. So I love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you got inside of the program, can you tell everyone like what your thought was, your experience?
Yeah. So I think like a lot of people who sign up for online programs, your experiences in the past may have varied, but I guess I wasn't expecting as much, and I was delighted to have as much time with you, Brenna, as well as seeing you coach other folks in the program. And so it was very organized from you sort of giving a lesson with some content around it. And then we'd have a coaching session and you would go through live in real time with us through our own material and our own content and answer our questions. So I mean, I showed up for all the calls I could. I couldn't make all of them, but I don't show up if something's not useful. So I think I made at least like 80% of those calls. So yeah, I found it really helpful just hearing other people's examples. I think a lot of people don't know what they don't know. and you don't know what questions to ask. And so when you see somebody else getting coached on something, or watching them sort of engage in a strategy session, you pick up a lot of stuff that you can apply to your own situation. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about, a group kind of cohort model. And it's one of the things I always enjoy, group models, and that's why my program is the same as a group coaching program.
Yeah, I agree. I learned so much from being one of the first. Well, I was actually part of her team, my friend Marisa Corcoran, and I would go to all of her coaching sessions, and like just doing that alone, like I learned so much. And so I couldn't agree more that it makes a huge difference. Hopefully
Mhm.
okay, good. You froze for a second. So I didn't know, my internet sometimes is spotty. And so because you went through the program, you were there for the calls, you really implemented it. Like, how did you feel after taking the program and going into your launch?
Yeah. So, there was a couple of things that came up outside of the business world, which had originally set aside time to do your program and to implement along the way. Unfortunately, I got tied up with some other things. So I ended up then working with you one-on-one immediately after the program, because the pre-launch program really helps you sort of find your voice of customer, build that entire runway strategically, but you still get to, you have to implement it and do all of that. So I ended up hiring Brenna to actually help me collect some of that voice of customer and compile it and turn it into actual emails and copy and et cetera, et cetera. So um, from that perspective, I got a little more hand holding, but it was so tremendously helpful that I now have a pre-launch asset that I can take with me. I can use it in as part of my evergreen material. I can use it for my next big launch is going to be in January of 24. So I'm definitely going to be tapping in and using the same sort of weekly strategy that we were able to hammer out heading into that launch.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that was really cool with what we did for you is because I spent a little bit more time because we worked together after the fact, is that I was able to go back and look at all of these. Like we had identified the strategy, and because we knew what the strategy was, we were like, oh, we don't have to like recreate everything. And actually the first pre-launch I ever worked on, we did some of this as well, which you have written so many blogs,
Mhm.
so much great information. And it was a matter of like, okay, how do we just like tweak this or add a certain thing and get it back in front of the person? So it kind of cuts down on that workload too.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think about this is how much stuff have I put out there, and we see 100% of the stuff that we put out there. And I think a lot of times we assume whoever's following us or on our email list sees 100% of the stuff we put out there, but that's nowhere near true, right? So I sometimes feel like if I'm saying the same thing over and over again, that I'm doing folks a disservice, but in reality, they haven't seen it. And even when I see an email again from somebody who's doing a launch that so I follow a lot of people just to see how their launches go. I'm like, oh yeah, that was that awesome email from last time. And then I'm still like, entertained and have some value provided from that email. So that's just proof to say that even if somebody sees something again, it's probably for their benefit. So, you found comments even on blog posts that were sort of like, people were like, oh, this changed my life and things like that I'd just completely forgotten about and was not using in my copy. And thankfully you saw it and you extracted that, and I was able to use that in social media and in emails and such. So that when you did that, that was a real eye opener for me, that so many of us have put so much out there that sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just go back and look at what you've already done and put it out there again and again and again.
Yeah, I do think I was thinking about it. This is like a personal example, but I had a friend tell me a long time ago, like, I should be putting electrolytes in my water. And I was like, yeah. Like, it's water. You don't need electrolytes. Like, I remember, and now like I found this new person on Instagram who basically said the same thing. And I was like, oh, you're like that reinforcement. So not that it
Mhm.
has to be someone else, but I was like, oh, this reinforcement of like, oh yeah, I probably do need electrolytes. and which you probably very much know as a doctor, but to me it was like this moment where I was just like, yeah, you have to see those things, like you have to say it again and again, because not everyone, even when we are putting out all that content, not everyone sees it. Even if they do see it, they need to hear it again. So to be able to go back and you're like, okay, I know my strategy now I can go back from this pool of stuff and be able to get it back in front of people, and it works, which is like,
Right.
you almost feel like you're cheating a little bit, right? Like, so that's how I feel sometimes. And I teach this. So
Yeah. I mean, if for folks out there that maybe considering joining your program, what's awesome is even from the pre-launch uh, program, you come away with these Google Docs of the work that you've been doing that you can directly use. So it's, again, I don't have to recreate the wheel all over again. You come away with a tangible end product that you can deploy however you choose.
yeah, and that's it. Once you go through the process to be able to reuse and reuse again and again. And I know one of the stories I've been talking a lot about lately is Susan Rioch, just because she was part of the first cohort, and she just did it. She just launched for the third time, had her biggest launch ever, and she's basically taking the same plan we put together and just making little tweaks, looking to see how she can optimize it. Does subject line need to change, or call to action need to change, and then recycling it. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits as well. And so how did your launch go? We talked a little bit about it before we came on live, but how did your launch go, especially compared to your other launches?
Yeah. So, like I was telling you beforehand, just based on my niche and such, I expect bigger launches at the start of the year, and I expect them to sort of trail off, which is why I used to plan on doing 4 launches. Then I said, oh, I'll do 3. And then I end up realize I can just get away with 2 live launches. But I always expect my September one to be actually quite a bit smaller than my January one. And this last launch which wrapped up about a month ago, ended up being a very solid 6-figure launch for me. I got 49 new clients in, 5 of whom again had registered during the pre-launch phase, and that's my largest fall launch by probably at least 50-60% compared to prior years.
Oh wow, we didn't talk about that. That's
I know
amazing.
I forgot to tell you that part.
No, this is a surprise and delight. That is so that's amazing. Like, I knew it was a bigger launch, but
Yeah.
to hear that it was 50 or 60% bigger than your last one in the fall is just like outstanding. I'm so happy for you. And I'm so happy too, because like, I know what I show people is not like, it takes effort. You have to put a little effort into doing some of this, and that when you do commit to it and actually do the process that I show you, that it pays off over time. And not only pays off once, but like you said, that you're going to have this thing that you can rinse and repeat.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy for you. And so can you tell anyone, as we kind of wrap up here, I appreciate your time once again, like if someone's contemplating or on the fence or thinking about joining the program, what your thoughts are?
Yeah. So, I think take an honest look at what you're trying to accomplish, and look at your messaging, look at your copy, and ask yourself, am I priming my ideal audience to actually buy my product, or am I just sort of like throwing something out there during launch time? And if you really want to set them up so they're at a point where they're eager and awaiting your doors to open, like I said, I hadn't even set up my formal launch before I had people buying into the wrong evergreen version instead of the live version, and that obviously got fixed. But if you want folks sort of chomping at the bit, I always say biting at the chomping at the bit for your whatever you offer, then it just makes a ton of sense. And again, like I said at the beginning, I just don't see a lot of people talking about that pre-launch phase. They'll talk about, oh, maybe the longer your runway, the bigger launch, but they don't necessarily focus on strategies around that, how to message specifically during the pre-launch and how that differs during your launch. and then taking you and even holding your hand and coming up with what's the verbiage you're going to use, how are you going to deploy that, what are you going to do. And then, I think one thing I really appreciated about your program was you were like, if you only have this amount of time, you can create these pieces of content, and if you have a little bit extra time, these are the other things you can layer on, which I really appreciated. So as you know, I focus mostly on email and one or two social posts. I didn't sort of go buck wild with the other sort of even a full blown approach with posts like daily on social media. I just didn't have that bandwidth. And the fact that you can customize it to where you are and what you need and what you're capable of doing, and if you have a team, what they're capable of doing, I think is just fantastic. So if anyone's on the fence, it's very clearly a steal, and you're only going to get an asset that you can carry with you forward in the future. So I highly recommend.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I agree so much of what you're saying. I think something I just want to reiterate what you said too, that like when Dr. Junaid and I met, I was like, okay, what can you do? Right. And that's it. It's like, where is your energy at? Yes, we want to raise our visibility, but what makes sense for you in your business, and being able to deploy that makes all the difference. And
Right.
so I thank you. I appreciate you being here. If anyone is watching this, the pre-launch plan program is open right now. It's open through Monday. It's filling up quickly. So if you're thinking about joining me in the next cohort, please do. And thank you again for being here with me today. And if for some reason we have a doctor who is watching this and they are charting, tell everyone where they can find you, and I will drop that link below.
Yeah, so the main place to go is www.chartingconquered.com, like someone who conquers somebody. It always comes out in descriptor other things as the airplane, the Concorde, but Conquered, chartingconquered.com.
Yeah, and if you are watching and you are a doctor, like Dr. Junaid has such a great personality, is so personable, so funny. I really have enjoyed getting to work with you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And it's been a complete pleasure working with you, Brianna.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.